talk today a little bit about communication, and the message title is titled, Can We Talk? Can you turn to your neighbor and say, can we talk? And then turn to the other neighbor and be like, I want to talk to you too. Can we talk? We're going to talk a little bit about it. And, my name's Crystal, if we haven't met. We'd love to meet you over here at the front. Right after service to get Instagram, to get your number, whatever. We want to be your friend. But if you know me, you know that I don't speak Spanish. I'm learning. It's been a process for like years. I've been learning to speak Spanish. My husband is very fluent, his Spanish voice is very amazing, very sexy, if I can say that. Woo! Anyway, so he speaks fluent Spanish. He's very good. His jokes are way better in Spanish. So anyways, it's been a process. Not that, whatever. I'm not trying to dog him out in English. But so I'm learning how to speak Spanish. And I've taken lessons in high school. I know all the vocab, but for some reason, like putting sentences together, I'm just not about it. I'm learning. Pray for me. So when we go to TJ to order tacos, as we do sometimes, I'm pumping myself up because I'm like, okay, I don't speak Spanish, but like if I'm gonna learn something, it's gonna be how to order my tacos. Like, I can get lost, but I'm not gonna starve, okay? So I'm prepping myself. I'm like, 2 people ahead. I'm like, I'm gonna order my tacos. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, mulita, carne asada, sin cebolla, like, okay, horchata. I'm like, in my mind, like going for it. And then I get up to the counter, and most of the times, guys, people see me struggling, and they're like, the lady's always like, she sees me struggling, and she's like, she'll answer in English, and I'm like, yo, it took me like 5 minutes to like try to prep this order, and she speaks to me in English, and then I get anxiety, and then Abe sees me, and he steps in like a good husband, and he orders for me in Spanish, and I'm like, it always happens, it never fails. But what Abe is saying is literally the same thing that I'm saying. We're saying the same thing, but it's in a different language. And most of the time in communication, that's what's happening. We're all pretty much saying the same thing. We have the same spirit, but we're speaking a different language. So can we talk about that? We are going to talk about that. And what's great, communication is always like a thing that, gets us on the same page, but it also can get us off the same page. And when we're in conversations like that, I think that sometimes, we see a lot of things in the world. We see a lot of racism. We've seen violence. We've seen cancel culture. We've seen indifference in the world. And what's sad is that sometimes it takes just somebody to sit down and be like, okay, let me hear you. Let me hear what you have to say about that. And I don't have to agree fully. I can agree to disagree, but can we be humane about it? Can we be on the same page and still be, love each other even though we don't agree? So let's go ahead and we're going to get into that. Can you tell your neighbor, can we talk? Can we talk? It never can be too soon to have these hard conversations, but it can be too late. You know that? It can be too late. And so we're going to talk a little bit about 3 things about communication. It is a hard thing. I know personally it is very hard to communicate. I'm working on it, and that's why we're talking about it. That's why we're teaching it, because it's hard for everybody. It's hard for all of us. So 3 things about communication. Number 1 is communication is clarity. Communication is clarity. Communication isn't the key, but clear communication is absolutely the key. You can be saying a ton of things to somebody, and it can go in one ear and out the other because they're not comprehending it. They're not understanding what you're saying. So communication is great, but if you're not comprehending what the other person is saying, it is useless. It is useless. And I catch myself doing that all the time. I'll be at the house, washing the dishes or with the kids, and Abe is saying something, and I'm like, you go through the motions. You're like, yeah, babe, yeah, yeah. And then he's like, did you hear what I said? And I'm like, no, I didn't. Like, I'm literally just agreeing with you. And we do that sometimes when people want to have conversations with us. When they bring something up to us, we're either saying, yes, no, yes, I had a good day. Yeah, my day was great. But there's no connection. And John Maxwell says it great. This is what he says. He says, everyone communicates, but few connect. Is there room in your conversation to connect? Okay, guys, when someone responds to, like, pouring their heart out on text, and you write K back, K, like just the letter K, and I know some of you all do that in here, let me help you out. That is not a way to communicate to people. Okay, we could say, okay, thank you very much, appreciate you, like, let's put some more to our texts so we have that leeway to connect with people. Because when you're saying K, it's just out there, We need room to connect with each other. You can communicate all you want, but without comprehending each other, it's nothing, guys. So what does that take? Once we start to have clarity with each other, we have connection with each other. Then after we have connection with each other comes confrontation. Confrontation happens all the time. And clarity is a product of healthy confrontation. So, with that, confrontation is absolutely the worst thing, and we all try to avoid it at some point. Can I get an amen, or am I the only one? Yes, I hate confrontation. Well, what is confrontation? It is to face a situation that makes you uncomfortable, and if someone rubs you the wrong way or bothers you, it's to, face them and not let it go away. Sometimes we do. We like to let it, just slide by and, avoid it. But in the Bible, and if you have a hard time with confrontation, I want you to write this down. It's in Galatians 5:17. When I read it, I was like, okay, this is speaking to me. Galatians 5:17 says, what the flesh wants is opposite to the spirit, and what the spirit wants is opposite to the flesh. They are opposite to each other. So when you have confrontation and you want to avoid it at all costs, which most of us do, just remember this verse in Galatians that whatever your flesh is saying to run out the door and avoid that person when they come to church. You're like, oh gosh. Hopefully it's not at church, but at your workplace, you're like, oh gosh, they're here. I'm going to avoid them at all costs. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to see them. I don't want to see their Instagram. I'm blocking them. I don't want to have this conversation. Remember what Galatians says is whatever your spirit is, or whatever your flesh is saying, the spirit is opposite from that. So he wants you to have these tough conversations, even though they are horrible and it's the most awkward, uncomfortable situation. I know that for a fact, once you have those conversations with people, you feel lighter, you feel better, you feel ready to conquer the world, honestly. You're like, okay, we did this. It's almost like you took a step in the relationship. You're like, okay, we're fighting. Even though it may not be like a relationship, it's a friend, a coworker. You're like, okay, we went through some things. We hashed it out, and we're improving. And so you may be saying, right now, okay, so I've avoided a few confrontations in my life. I have, to be honest, and I've seen that when I avoid these confrontations, it builds a void in me. It could be totally their issue, but all of a sudden it defines who I am. It switches me up, and I'm like, okay, this is weird. Their funk, the way we're fighting, and it's their problem. But I feel because I'm avoiding it, the avoidance is building a void in me. And I found a verse that is it just speaks to that point. And it's in James 3:5-6. And this is what it says. It's going to blow your mind. It's so good. It says, consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire and world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and itself sets on fire by hell. So a forest fire can be lit up, like engulfed in flames, because a little small spark, like a little thing. And I totally feel like that happens when we avoid those conversations, that little conversation that maybe would have taken 5 or 10 minutes, like totally engulfs your whole way of being. It engulfs your day. It messes with you. It messes with who you are. You're no longer that strong, confident person. You're avoiding people. Like, what? No, we need to be able to, like, go and face it. And, you know, Abe always says this, like, maybe you're in the crowd and you're like, I have a lot of conversations I need to have. Like, I don't have enough fingers to name it. Like, and you're like, okay, so what? Like, what conversation is most important? Which one should I do? And Abe always says this. He says, the hardest one. Like, whatever is the hardest one, whatever the one you want to avoid the most, have that conversation first. And from there, your confidence will build, and you'll be able to have more. And hopefully it's only a few. Like, well, that's why we're here. We're here to help you guys. So number one was communication is clarity. And number 2, let's write this down. It's communication is consistency. Everything about you says everything about you. Everything about who you are speaks volumes. And what you do, it speaks. And even if without speaking, your emotions, your mood, your tone, your movement, your facial expression says everything about you. You don't even have to say a word. And this has happened to me in my life, like I'm sure to you guys too. But when I was younger, I would be with my friends, maybe after church or after school, and we would make a plan. We'd be like, okay, you go ask your mom, and I'll go ask my mom or dad, and we're gonna, ask to go to each other's houses, and then it's gonna be a fun time. So we would like break, like, okay, go ask your parents. And so I would run to like my mom, and I'd be like, okay. All of a sudden, I see her, the way she's standing. She has, like, her hand on her hip, and I'm like, oh, she mad. Like, she is not having a good day. Or, like, her face, or her tone. So then you'll be like, okay, I'm not going to ask Mom today. I'm going to ask Dad. So I run to Dad, and Dad's like, oh, same thing. Tone. I'm like, okay, he looks like he's having a bad day. You start to pick up on, people you're close to. You're like, how they act. Okay, if you walk in the house, you're like, oh, nope, they're having a bad day. Okay, I'm not going to have this tough conversation right now. You start to pick up on mannerisms. You start to pick up on the facial expressions, their tone. And you already know it's not a good time to have this conversation. So, what is that? Your mannerisms. If you are happy, please tell your face you're happy. Because sometimes some of you are out here like super mad, but you're like, and everybody's like, are you okay? And you're like, yeah, I'm fine. Can you tell your face that? Because you look a little mad. You need to, everything about you says everything about you, like I said. So make sure that you are, if you're happy, be happy. Because then what you're presenting is, a safe place for people to have these conversations with you. If not, you're putting a void up. You're putting a wall up. And you're there. That's why people aren't approaching you. They're like, this is not a safe place. This is not, their tone, the way they act. It is not safe. I am not ready. So we need to be able to be approachable and ready to have these tough conversations. And when we have these tough conversations, sometimes, we need to keep this in mind, that you have power over the content that someone is bringing to you, but you don't have power over the context. What does that mean? When you are, having these conversations, the content is about you, totally, 100%. It could, own up to it. But the context that someone is bringing that to you, it may not be about you. And you need to be able to not take that personal. When you're having these hard conversations, you need to say, own up to what they're bringing to you. Because, yeah, maybe you were late at work. Maybe you weren't, acting the best. Or maybe, you said the wrong thing. Own up to that. But the context that they're saying it in, maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they've had this conversation already 10 times and you're the 11th person. Like maybe you don't know what they're going through at home. So make sure that when they bring the content to you, that you are aware of their context. Be aware of those people around you, because that's how we create healthy communication with each other. You're like, okay, like let me help you out. How are you doing? How are you, what's going on? Like, you can begin to present that to them. And let's see. So after that, I have a verse that helps me out when I go through these things. It's in James 1:19. And it says this: everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to be angry. Let's say that again. Everyone should be quick to listen, like super quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. If you don't like the fruit that you're getting, you need to check your seed. You need to check what you're sowing. There's some people out there that are saying, like, I definitely want someone to listen to me. But are you taking time to hear somebody? Are you taking time out of your day to hear somebody? If you're saying, like, I need to be heard, or I need to be seen, are you seeing somebody around you? Whatever you want in your relationship, you need to be that to other people. We need to begin to be that to other people, because then it sows that good seed. It sows that seed that says, this is what I want, Lord, and I'm going to sow it to others, and I guarantee that you will reap all of that back 100%. Right? Yes. Okay. So number 1 was communication is clarity. Number 2 was communication is consistency. And number 3 is communication is caring. In Proverbs 18:20, it says this: the tongue has the power of life and death. How crazy is that? That this thing right here in your mouth has the power of life and death. Like, if you think about that, that is wild. That this thing in your mouth has the power of life and death. And your words have the power. So what does that mean? The words have the power to change the world. They absolutely do. This thing in your mouth, what you say, can change the world. It could change with life and with death. And what I mean by that is also, not only does it have the power to change the world, but it has the power to change somebody's world. When you're talking to somebody and you say something totally off, it can change their whole look on life. Like life and death. Like, just by you saying something can totally derail someone's calling, someone's purpose, someone's attitude. So we need to remember that when we are saying something, maybe out of frustration, maybe out of anger, maybe out of a bad day, you are sowing. What are you sowing? Are you sowing life? Are you sowing death? And we need to remember that, because that can totally change the whole demeanor of the day. And I'm going to paint a picture to you, because this has happened. Say you wake up and you're like, you wake up early, you have enough time to go to the gym, like you are on cloud 9, you get dressed, your makeup's on point, your hair's on point, and you are like, okay, I'm going to get a coffee. Like, I have enough time before work. I'm going to get a coffee. You're at work. Everyone's saying what's up to you. Everyone's saying hi to you. And you are just like, all right, this is a great day. Like, this is an amazing day. You didn't have a lot of work, but you had just enough to, like, make sure you did something at work. And you're like, okay, I'm feeling myself. You're going home. You're like, I'm going to pick up my favorite, dinner at my favorite restaurant. There's no line. Like, you get your food. It's warm. You go home. You're about to eat. And you're like, today was a good day. And then all of a sudden, your phone glows. And you're like, shoot, who's texting me? It was a great day. You open it up, and all of a sudden it says, hey, can we talk? So from a good day, all of a sudden, can we talk? 3 words. Totally ruins your whole day. Like, everything. It was great. What a great day. And all of a sudden, 3 words. Can we talk? No, we cannot talk. I had a great day. Like, what? All of a sudden, you start overanalyzing, overthinking. I don't know if it's just me, but I do. I'm like, okay, what do they want to talk about? What did I say? What did I not say? What did they want me to say? Like, all of a sudden, you're starting to think about all these things. And if you're texting that, please let me help you. Don't put can we talk? Please, because all of a sudden, life and death, you totally ruined their day. Like, just with 3 words, can we talk? Can we talk about the future? Can we talk about our relationship? Give them some context. If we're talking about communication is caring, let's care about the people we're texting, because all of a sudden, when you get that text, you are out, you're done. Like, you're pretty much done until you have the conversation, right? Like, you're out. That's it. That's all you're thinking about is, okay, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? So I just want to make sure that you know that your actions have reactions to not just you personally, but to those around you. So be aware. Start caring for people. What does that mean? Be mindful. Be mindful that your tongue has power, that your words, that what you're communicating has power to not only just you, but to those around you. And you may be saying right now, like, it is hard. It is hard to be aware of that stuff. It is hard to care because maybe I don't feel like 100%, or I don't feel like no one's caring for me. And we consume, like, a lot of self-care stuff. Like, let's be honest, like Instagram, blogs, podcasts, we are all about that self-love, that self-worth. And we sow these good words into us. But when we give good words back to others, like when we don't keep that in, because we have a lot, we have a lot, but when we give it out, we're sowing relational care to other people. Let's be the ones to be, love ourselves. Let's have self-care, but also let's remember that relational care around us is super important. Because what is it? Like building yourself up, and then everyone around you is like, we got to bring them up with us. It's not just about us. It's about those around you, the people, the community around you, to build them up as well. Because then what are we? Maybe God has put you in their lives for just that. You are the person to speak life. And you're here today. You're here right now receiving words of encouragement. And maybe you're saying, like, man, my friend really needed to hear this. Or, like, my brother or sister, like, really needed to hear this. Or my mom. Well, it's not too late. Like, you can take my words, take Abe's words, take what the Bible says, and begin to sow that to them. Hey, let's have coffee. Like, I would love to just, like, catch up and, like, let's hang out. We haven't hung out in a while. And start to sow good seed into them. And they will be like, whoa, you're a totally different person. Has anyone said that to you? Like, you're a totally different person. Like, I feel it. I see it in, like, who you are. You're smiling more. Like, all this receiving, you begin to, like, spread it out and begin to care for those around you, and they'll catch it. Just like, like we said, like the tongue is death. It can have the power of death. It also can have the power of life. It also can bloom someone's season. It also can be, bring encouragement to those who are really angry. You can do that. You can sow that into them. And you may be sitting there right now and saying, it's really Crystal, like, all you're saying is great, and it's, like, really practical and stuff, but, like, I don't feel like I can care for somebody because I feel like nobody's caring for me. Like, I feel like I'm the only person who cares for me, and, like, no one's looking out for me. I want to tell you that there is a God that cares so much about you, and that He, no matter what you're going through, He has you. Like, He has you. And you may feel like He doesn't have you. You may feel like you are just engulfed in so much hurt, in so much pain, in maybe a lack of communication. Someone isn't communicating to you, and it has derailed your calling. It's derailed your life. I want you to know that that what we talked about, these things, clarity, consistency, caring, all that, it's communication, yes, but that's also God. God is clarity. He is consistency. And He is absolutely, He cares for you 100%. So know that when we talk about this, it is who He is. It is His being. He loves you so much. And the reason why He wants us to do these things is because that's who He is. That's who He is, and He wants us to reflect it to those around us by showing them, who He is. And so with that, I want you guys to stand.